and welcome to the season 19 of the Productize Podcast. Productize Conference 2025 is just around the corner, and I guess you should have your tickets already because today we have Krasi Bozhinkova that is going to be a speaker in Productize Workshop Day. Krasi, very good to welcome you to the podcast.
Hi, Pedro. Thank you so much. And I'm very happy to be here again. I've done it last year and it was super exciting. So I wasn't nervous. Usually I am when I have to do those things, but I knew it's going to be great. So thanks a lot for inviting me.
This is not your first time. There are not many people that come 2 or 3 times to this podcast. But if anyone wants to look up on you again, just search for Krasi, the short version of Krasimir. I just learned that your real name is Krasimir, but for short is Krasi, so that people can check the last time you spoke with us. And today I'm very excited to have you because I really want to go into your background. What made an engineer that started in telecommunications, then stumbled into product management. Now you have your own company in Owtcome as a strategic designer in brand development. Can you expand a little bit on it? What
Yeah,
has been your career so far?
it's a little loaded, and I usually try to present myself instead of saying that I wear all of these different hats. I started using of a hand with different rings, which is kind of the same metaphor. But in simple terms, you can think of my experience and career almost being a T-shape. I had the opportunity and the privilege to be given the chance to change and change pretty often. Indeed, I started as engineer, believe it or not, in space communication. Now space is a big topic, but back when I began, it was not really very popular or interesting, and definitely not a place for too many women. So it was a lonely ride for a long time. But I discovered in the work that my passion resides somewhere else, and as much as I have this structured mathematical thinking, I'm actually quite a creative person, so it was only natural that I gravitated towards the business side, which I think you could argue that is more creative than the technical side, even though some people may disagree.
That's not an intuitive answer people would guess.
Yeah,
Business being creative, right?
but I find that actually is very creative in the context of if you have to redesign the business model or think how differently to enter the market and what can you do in a certain constraint when your resources are limited or your competition is really further ahead of you, then the creativity has to resurface. And that's why I started getting really passionate about doing work on the product side, also in business development. And naturally, I found my space in product. First started with the heavy commercial responsibility, which for a product person is sometimes exciting, but also at the same time challenging, because if you have to show revenues, in addition to exciting product features, it's a very different ballgame. But I like challenges, so to me, this was a great learning opportunity.
And you've also been involved in creating the product bootcamp, am I right?
Yes, so that's another another big change that had happened in the last, I would say, 8 months or so. We actually ask ourselves this big question: if you really want to scale the impact and broaden up the ability to work with different people, what is the right format? And it wasn't obvious initially that we have to go into the training area. And to be honest, I tried to avoid it for a really long time because I was very comfortable and quite okay of just doing one-on-one interactions where we would really immerse ourselves into the client problem and kind of become almost an extension to the team. I never saw myself as a consultant because that's not what we do. But our job is to bring this critical thinking and different outside perspectives, also counting on all of these different hats and experiences in our careers with my colleagues, which similarly share the T profile. It was a very rewarding experience, but at the same time, with so much change happening, and especially now AI reshaping everything from discovery to how we decide to what we build, we felt that it is really urgent to talk about and equip people with the tools for the unknown. To be able to ask these better questions and use AI without actually losing their own judgment or critical thinking. And that's what pushed us towards the Bootcamp series. To start putting these programs that are quite different from the traditional approach, only because we want to make sure that we don't feel comfortable just relying on the data perspective, but we somehow channel this more difficult lens around intuition or foresight, where your job is to connect dots that are not yet together in any meaningful pattern, but to foresee where this change is heading and what is going to happen next. And I think there are not really many tools that play in both worlds, the world of data with insights and the world of foresight.
Gut feeling and data together, so it's still a bit AI prone to AI evolution.
Yes, but data also make us feel comfortable because we see things and we can make sense. It is much more difficult in the unknown, because this is a space of ambiguity. It's a space of uncertainty and certainly a lot of risk. So how do you actually overcome the paralysis to move forward when you don't have enough? We as humans, we love clarity and confidence of making hopefully the right decisions, but when we are stripped of this and we find ourselves in a completely new environment where no familiar land signs are around us to orient ourselves, then it becomes almost a freezing experience. Instead of taking forward the organization or the team, we are kind of paralyzed. And I really wanted to make a change around this aspect and help teams overcome this very uncomfortable paralysis so that they can still move forward even when data is scarce.
And this is how you founded Outcome, just to understand. So you
No,
started in space,
that's
then you go
more
to
the on the
telecommunications.
bootcamp side. Outcome started with an interesting story. It stands with the first three letters OWT. It's one with tech, only because I really love technology and my professional experience started on the tech side. So I have always gravitated towards technology in one way or another. So I thought when I was forming Outcome, like now 6 years ago, what would be a really good and catchy name. And I already was seeing the change and transition towards outcome driven approaches as opposed to features. So there was this shift, but when I somehow wanted still to connect it to technology, and I found a cool way, I believe, with
I find
outcome.
beautiful these journeys of a T-shape profiles. And what do you think is your uh, your base? Like because you start in space, telecommunications engineer, then you go to product, but most of the recent work I see is also mostly on the design. So what is now more connected with your day-to-day identity? Where do you like to be
I
more
still
involved
think
with?
it's the product head, but I bring design into the equation because of this critical thinking, and especially of how you can define these breakthrough products or a different positioning of your existing product in the unknown space or markets that are emerging, but you don't really have clear rules. So I think I haven't found another discipline that is powerful enough to help you create these dots and have both expansive but also uh, condensed way of
Converge and I
summarizing,
expand.
yes, to diverge, converge, and all of this. That's the power of design. So as much as I wear a product and innovation hat, I actually wear at the same time my design hat all the time, only because of this need to boost the intuition and find a way to still make those moves without losing the momentum. And I think design gives the right capability and mindset actually to do that.
I totally resonate with it. I think I became a better product manager when I started learning more about some of the design frameworks. Because you just mentioned, for instance, being able to expand, and I immediately remember the double diamond. When I discovered about the double diamond framework, for people that are listening that may not don't know, they can just Google double diamond design process. Like there's the phases of divergence in discovery. We don't know what we're looking at, then we need to converge into a solution, then how to deliver it in we don't know, expand again, and then converge again. It's a kind of powerful frameworks
It's
design
probably
bring
the
us.
most familiar aspect that people may associate, but the field and the industry is so much richer. For example, we use a lot in our work also this concept of inversion. So instead of asking the why, we ask the why not, which is the negative space. And believe it or not, in most instances, it's more powerful to have the reasons for objections than the reasons for agreement. Another one that is also powered and influenced by design is this idea of looking for frictions. Not necessarily, of course, alignment is great, but especially if you try to define the value of your product, understanding where the friction is in the user world is super powerful. And unfortunately, it doesn't just happen by converging, diverging. That's not really it. So you do have these other mechanisms that design brings, which I believe, especially now, also in the context of AI and everything that we're experiencing, AI is not good at that. So it still requires this human perspective to understand the why and use everything in our capability to get to this space. So I rely on design for that.
Okay, got it. And from what I saw, you not only relied on all these design frameworks and ideas that exist in the literature out there, but you also had to create some of your own. Like, I was doing some research on you. You create like the critical need model, multi-ocean strategy. Do you want to enlighten us a bit about what these ideas are, where they had to appear?
I would say
Inspired, educational,
overwhelming, very practical,
challenging,
thought-provoking,
meaningful,
enthusiastic,
nice people,
innovation, and fun.
Product growth mindset.
new connections.
Join us at the coolest product management environment this October in Lisbon.
Yes, for sure. It's an interesting story. We've created many frameworks, not just those. It actually started, the whole journey started with a very famous tool that was created in the 60s. I'm sure everyone knows and you would recognize the SWOT, which stands for strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats. And in my career, for years, I've been asked to do this every time for every project. And to be honest, I totally hated it. And I was so cynical because I couldn't do anything with it, really. And my frustration led me to ask a question. So what else can we do with some of these frameworks, and how can we bring them to the modern world to answer the challenges of now? Almost to take them from this 2D space, very transactional and one-dimensional, to a much more richer, more holistic way. So every tool that we've built with the critical need, the meta SWOT, the multi-ocean strategy as well. We have done some work around also brand with 360 perspective. They all share this commonality that it is much more holistic, and it is also driven by activities. So these tools that we build, we want them to be not a single frame that you just do once and then nothing happens, but it needs to be a process. It needs to be turned into a collaborative activity. And there are ways of how you can turn it into a much more iterative work. If
And why
we,
you say that is because
I'm
SWOT is
sorry,
kind of and why do you felt that need is because like SWOT is a snapshot in time, is like what are
it
my
was
strengths and
snapshot in
weakness,
time,
and there's
and
nothing.
it was
It's just
also
awareness, probably just awareness and not actionable.
I really couldn't connect any dots out of it because the ideas were very separate. There are 4 blocks, but so what? I wanted to know if I bring things together, what does it emerge? Do I see any pattern that actually can help me make a decision? Because just characterizing things, it's interesting, but it's a down table. And it didn't do anyone any good, only listing things without seeing the connections, correlation, and what do you do with it. So this was the beginning of me and some of my partners that we work together, Diana, Evout, and others in this journey to actually bring
Expand on
sense
this concept.
and take it to the present moment, which requires so much more complexity for us to handle, and also to look at from different perspective. For example, if we go back to one of the models that you mentioned, this critical need, we started from the premise that there is the world as is, but also tomorrow there is a very different world as it could be. So in our work, as far as I know, even with the jobs to be done or common model or anything that exists out there, it is very difficult to have a holistic understanding, not only on the present, which those models do, but how are the needs going to evolve? And no one tells you that. So instead of doing these snapshots, we thought we have to create something that bridges, first of all, the two worlds, which I truly believe is the critical need, but also help teams think and put into perspective the present, but in the future. Otherwise, if you stick yourself to today and here and now, you actually give opportunity for competition to get ahead of you and spot something that you haven't quite. And that's
Yeah, because
terrible thing.
most design ideas or frameworks, I don't know, they have like this premise of we are trying to solve the problem, considering that the problem will not evolve, or the
Exactly. And
context where products live are not changing. And
that has been
hence the
a
clash probably in
frustration.
generational, right?
I'm sorry?
But maybe there's even the origin of a clash in some products not adapting to newer generations. What I mean is, if I'm a baby boomer working in product management with my lens of the world, maybe I will not be able to adapt to different ways that youngsters interact with these products or the things they do. You see this happening in the consultancy work you do or the products you run?
I
This
do.
clashing generational
I
expectations of
I
product.
don't think that it's generational. I find it more of a industry specific. And I'll try to explain. If the industry is rather set and you have a lot of data to validate and make informed decisions, there is absolutely nothing wrong with these models that exist. And they work, but they do need a lot of data. The problem happens when you have to do this foresight capability of thinking what's next and where do you need to go next is where things get messy. So I don't find that that's a generation specific. I think it's related, in my opinion, to the context of where you work. If your industry is slow moving or established and there hasn't been a recent disruption, then it's a very different ball game, and they're perfectly fine. The existing tools, you can do miracles with that. But when you're in turmoil and when there are rapid changes or unpredictability, then the existing paradigm breaks, and then you have to do something else.
Okay, I got it. I got it. And going back now to your journey, you referred that you are kind of a T-shaped profile, and I think we have some things in common. Like I also started as a master in telecommunications, working from consultancy, then to product. Now as a consultant, uh, do you find it valuable that you had to change the rings? I'm not saying the hats. You had to change or had so many rings on your hands during your career. What do you think it has been
Think
giving it to you?
certainly, because every time it put me out of my comfort zone, and I had to expand it or learn different things, new things. But what I find most valuable out of those experiences is this ability to maintain the curiosity aspect and actually be open for these different sides of the business and get familiar with their challenges and their frustrations so that you become, in a way, a little more empathic. Because if you wear a sales hat and you have been product all your life before, it's a very different journey when you know that everything is burning under you and you have to deliver these revenues one way or another. The challenges and priorities shift. So this idea of understanding where the others are coming from, what influences their decision making, I find it personally quite fascinating.
100%. I also swapped a lot during my 10 years career, so it's a short career yet, but I swapped a lot. And what I understood is what worked in some company did exact same thing did not work in a different context. The ways of working, probably both are right, both are wrong. It was interesting in finding, meeting so many different people, different industries, different clients, different business models. I find it super enriching when someone is able to swap jobs more frequently than probably people do. I actually do give this advice to most of my friends, like you should change jobs every so often. Um,
And better if they can wear this another, if they can add another ring on their finger, not just move within the same
changing
career.
hats is just it's an add-on, right? It's not
indeed. It can be a really rewarding experience, but it also depends on the personality and the
of course.
the willingness of the person to be kind of make a fool of themselves initially before they figure it out.
Yeah, and fighting for this uncomfort because
Yes.
there's an uncomfort out of all these
For
changing
sure,
of
all
jobs.
learning
And
has this
we always
moment
feel like a
where
fraud
you
when changing, and we need to prove ourselves again. And there's this, but also on the other side, one to learn to grow. I do believe that we need to go through these valleys of pain.
yes. And this brings us closer to understanding this human truth, which is very unique. It applies not just in the putting ourselves in our client shoes, whatever the client means, but also with our colleagues. It's very different to to have the responsibility and the accountability in some of these departments. The experience is was totally eye-opening for me.
Okay. And Krasi, before I want to go into embracing the unknown in some of the way you think, because I have a very interesting mind on it. Before, I just want to wrap up what we was talking, because before you mentioned the importance of empathy. How does empathy plays out as a product management? How is that skill important for a product manager to do their job?
Oh, it's it's probably one of the most important capability that you can train yourself. And I say that because I believe that if you don't start with the human story, this featured game and building yet another app, I mean, who cares? So that's very limiting and definitely short-sighted. And that's why we end up with such absurdity on the product side. Lately, I've been writing on LinkedIn, exploring day-to-day experiences that I find unique, starting from a purple glue to IKEA checkout, and lately my Garmin disappointment of what it means to be actually emotionally clueless. And I think empathy can help a product manager overcome these moments. So instead of asking yourself, what value do we bring? I think the better question is to ask, first of all, what's happening in people's lives? And more importantly, there is, I believe, even better question than that, to ask, what must users either believe or feel or experience before they say yes to our product, despite the risk, the cost, and the change?
The
And
longer
if we
journey
can
of the
answer this question, I think we'll be golden. And it's only possible if you allow yourself the permission and you take the extra effort to understand this human story.
I have this one cue I use to sometimes because it's hard to when no, it's important to be empathic and think about the journey and what the users are feeling in these moments of some journey on the product. Sometimes it's hard because we keep working, and the day to day we think about the features, deadlines, and things we need to do. Um, And I try to sometimes bring me to we're doing this and this and this and that. So what? trying to come up with it. You just said it before, like this. So what? Who cares? Like these kind of questions. Why you're doing it? So what? If we keep from time to time, like a post-it on the desktop, we're going to do this export CSV feature of a download database. So what? So why are you like trying to digest these? Do you have any?
Absolutely. I may actually add this sticker to my desktop to remind myself every now and then, because I also fall in the trap every now and then.
Uh, we
What
start working and it's hard
actually,
to.
you made me think about this idea that, as you say, the more we iterate on the user journey, I actually think that the danger is that we perfect it to a point that instead of representing these messy humans, which we all are in our day-to-day, we begin to design for those ideal, almost robots, humans, which don't exist. And if we don't hold ourselves back to actually account for some unpredictability in this user journey, we would always be technically superb or technically clever, but emotionally clueless. And once you break this trust, it's very difficult to move away from any transactional relationship. You kind of lost it. And it's a pity, because so many products out there are technically superior. There isn't anything better. But when it comes to this understanding, where the poor user, in that instance, I refer to my recent experience with my new Garmin watch, which actually penalized me in a way, doing exercises, giving the most blunt feedback that you can ever possibly hear. Good job. I mean,
Because
who
you are
wants to
not using
hear
my
that good
product
job?
right.
I'm
Exactly.
sorry?
Because you are not using the product as I wanted. So that is a very good takeaway. Like we should design for probably imperfection. We should design taking the consideration of messy humans we are.
Yes,
And
definitely. I think
instead of
every step
saying,
of the user journey should have the messy version of it, because now we've cleaned it so much that it is almost a sterile environment, but it's not the real thing.
and then
And
the fault is the users because they are not using the product as they should.
yes,
It's
there's
like,
so many examples with that that we can bring here. But indeed, I personally truly believe that if I need to change, would want to change one thing in product management, would be these messy humans. How do we capture the messy human in our perfect user journey? And this would be a very creative exercise for
that's a very
sure.
good takeaway. Trying to design for the not only for what it could be, the PPS, but for the imperfection. In Japan, they have like this saying, the wabi sabi, the perfect, the beauty of imperfections. This kind of mentality at accepting, integrating these flaws. It's very interesting. Krasi, let me know a little bit about how your mind is structured when embracing the unknown. One goes to product discovery. We still don't know what we need to do. We have business goals. We need to make money. We work in this industry. We need to build products around this. This is what our competitors are doing. Probably should do something you like. We really don't know. Let's talk with the users. We come up with feature backlogs, ideas. We put up a team. Let's go. We have money, 6 months. Let's build stuff. How do you approach uncertainty in your way of
I
working?
think what you describe is indeed discovery, and that's what we call it. But one nuance or caveat in this scenario would be that we need to be actually honest and admit that all we do is we try to wear the hat of efficiency. And our job in this period of research, discovery, whatever you want to call it, is remove any risk or uncertainty as much as possible. Which, when you want to scale and leverage existing resources to the fullest, it's valid approach. But it doesn't really work if you're trying to build something new. if you want to go to a market that hasn't been defined. So wearing that hat of efficiency disguised as a discovery, I think we are not doing ourselves any
Any favor.
justice here of what we want to achieve, and we actually hinder our success, because in these unknown spaces, which are yet to be defined and their rules are yet to be established, you have to the best of your ability, embrace this fragility, uncertain, and understand, not just embrace fragility, but actually understand where fragility resides, which would be in the intersection of what is uncertain, but also the high stake, so that you start working from that lens, being around the users or your market or even technology, or to push it even further, your team, because there are a lot of fragility moments or opportunities to capture upon in this undefined market, that are hidden insights, we call them, in this space, that I believe this step is absolutely necessary and critical before you wear your efficiency hat through discovery, trying to validate certain requirements, get feedback, user testing, everything which is super useful and necessary, but we cannot approach the uncertainty with that hat. There is another step prior to it, which we begin to call exploration, or strategic inquiry, but that's very convoluted word, so I try to stay away from it. But I think the best analogy is to, if discovery is where we put our efficiency hat, then we need to have the exploration, where we look for this fragility radar to understand where the opportunity would reside and what may hurt our business.
And it's interesting you bring that the efficiency and the exploration the same conversation. And I'm still trying to figure out what will lie ahead for us with AI, because if it was super important to have good product discovery, trying to understand, remove uncertainty, like you're saying, because things were costly. You would need to invest 6 months of worth of development for a team. This is $1 million for some companies. We need to know we are building the right things, hence the need for product managers and designers. But what happens if the cost will go down and you don't need as much discovery because the cost of development is smashed? You can just simply build stuff much more easy with these AI tools, build products very fast. Maybe it's even cheaper to build product directly rather than doing tests and designs. What do you think will change in this discovery?
I think what becomes possible, and equally even more difficult than before, is to answer the question and explain the why. Because, as you said, AI has incredible power into the how. The minute you give it the problem, it could give you as many solutions that you can possibly desire. Sometimes it can figure the what, but it is definitely very bad at explaining the why. So I think with the boom of tools and applications, I hope we'll have a more opportunity to bring our intuition into the mix, and with the help of AI, figure the answer to the why and where do we need to be next. Because if we can figure that question, I think the opportunity is massive. With data, unfortunately, all we do is look in the back mirror. If I use the metaphor of driving a car, we are constantly looking at the back mirror, but we need to figure a way to look forward. And
That's
I
a good
think
analogy. We cannot drive a car just by looking to the
we need both.
back mirror.
Of course, you need to see what's going on and situate yourself, and data is very good at that. But we also need to know where we need to go next. And this is only possible if you have this foresight. And it's not by mistake that's also the term used, and the metaphor usually combined with the driving, but indeed one is helping you locate yourself, which is the inside the data-driven approach, so you know exactly where you are, but it doesn't answer where you need to go next. So I hope with the help of AI, we'll be able to get a little bit of added capability for us as product leaders to actually drive towards this why, where we need to be next.
And better
It's
decision
our
making.
responsibility to also bring the emotional component, as I spoke previously, not just to be technically superb, but also emotionally relevant, and to start designing more emotional experiences. Because frankly, there
What do you
is
mean?
not
What
much
do you mean by
emotion
emotion
in a button.
experiences in a product?
Well, if I pick any up, anything that you can think of, the whole interface, it's kind of stripped of much of empathy or emotion. It is very transactional and very efficient, which is valid for some things, but for others, I think we have constrained ourselves only because, as you said, we couldn't build many things cheaply, and we had to pick the most effective way of monetizing our investments. But now that's changing. So I believe, and I hope we're going to see more of these emotional interfaces going forward.
That's interesting.
And use AI as a driver for that.
Yeah, this is very interesting. Last year on Productized conference, I actually attended one of the workshops. There was a guy talking about gamification experiences, and I felt, this could be useful for me in not a game product. It was the Octalysis framework. It was interesting because it brought like, I think it was 8 different vectors to look to into a product. Like, what is the one of them is the accomplishment. What is the accomplishment that this product will make the user feel? The word is feel, like these emotions.
Exactly.
Like, what is the a higher purpose for using this product? Another one, it was the social aspect. So is there any features that I can interact with other users? Is there a forum, places I can put thumbs up for people? No, bring the social aspects into the product. Giving something for uncertainty, like giving something that you can only see these kind of features this week, otherwise it will disappear. You need to come give these kind of feelings into the product.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely correct to point out. So it's, in my opinion, it is indeed very important that we take into account this aspect of experience, but also not to forget the dimension around the behavior change, because ultimately, with any new product that you want your customer to undergo this behavior change of how they interact, what they do, and it has many dimensions, so it's quite a complex space. But I hope to see a bit more responsible work done in the product side in that domain as well.
Okay, talking about responsible work, what do you feel about ethical design? Meaning, the other day I discovered this interesting story about uh, I hope I'm not saying something wrong, but I guess it was BlackBerry when they were doing the BlackBerry phones. They come up with these notifications, and the goal at the time for them is like for people not to waste time. So that instead of opening the apps, they could see just the notification what happened. Then they can go with their lives. And nowadays, notifications is the kind of the number one time killer of everyone's attention, stealing everyone's attention, no one getting things done. So it kind of got into the reverse. At the time, probably they were designing with good intentions.
Yes, I totally I totally hear you, and this brings me back to the start of the conversation when I spoke about design, because I think design is very important also for us to understand this idea of cognitive biases that inherently they are part of our lives. We work with such shortcuts all the time, but it becomes detrimental if we don't really understand, for example, the if we strip the purpose out of the work that we do, of course we'll solve the problem for the shorter term. But what about these unintended consequences? And that's what I believe you refer to, this small responsible design. And this is only possible if we challenge our perspective. Are we really confident that we can solve something when we are overwhelmed with information? Or we have to actually stop and pull back and reflect before we make the next move? And there are now more and more tools that exist out there that help us more holistically see the impact of our work, which is also connected to another topic that we spoke at the beginning, designing for outcomes, because designing for outcomes actually should include this responsible component into it. Otherwise, you're not giving an outcome, you're just giving a feature. You're doing a specific intervention, which is very, very narrow, but not always the balances are put in place that not only you as a provider or a product get the value, but also there needs to be something for the user. This exchange, I think in many instances, is very imbalanced.
That's what you mean. And what advice would you give to someone just starting this career as a product manager and has no idea what you're talking about? Like,
I'm sure they
how
don't.
can I develop these?
I
I don't know,
think
holistic view because it's a curse of knowledge that
no, I
that one
know
have.
it's very difficult if you're just beginning. It may actually paralyze you because there is so much to learn, and where do you start? So I would say my advice would be read as many books that are not product related as possible, about concepts. Of course, understand design, but also think about chaos. I got totally fascinated what chaos is about, and my advice would be try to get this grounding understanding of what's going on in the world around human behavior, going back to empathy before you master the craft of product, because the product is almost the iceberg, the top of it. But what's going on deeper down, you still have to, if you are really passionately want to do a good job, you do have the responsibility to figure out these hidden layers, which are not necessarily product related, but your product impacts them. So slowly, I think it's possible. It's not going to be a 1 month journey or 1 year journey, but if a person is curious, I think they can get deeper into the layers of the iceberg to understand all of these implications on human, of course,
Human behavior,
sustainability, responsibility, and these long-term consequences, how the product can change for good or bad behavior and what happens. And
that's
design
interesting.
and other disciplines. Nature is another one. There are so many examples of how innovation is taken from nature into the product world.
And how much we
But
copy from nature.
yes, but for
into the
that, a
interfaces
person first of all needs to be hungry and curious. So
curious.
if they're curious, I think it's they're going to be fine. I'm not worried.
That's interesting. I think it's the first time someone recommends not focusing on product to learn more about being good at building products, like focusing on exploring other areas. And when you said that, I immediately thought about another areas that I'm passionate about, like investing. I think I started investing better when I stopped looking to investment stuff, but more like demographics, macro world, like what's going on, like understanding that there's fluctuations in human population that actually impacts the demand on products and markets and hence investment results. So
there is this fascinating theory around obliquity, which means that sometimes the fastest route to achieve your goal is the indirect route. And I always go back to this idea, and that's why I try to use it in my work, is that sometimes you have to avoid the direct route, even if it seems to be the fastest. That's why when you ask this question, as I thought, to bring the analogy of the iceberg for anyone starting in the career to make some time and allow themselves this freedom to understand
That's a super nice takeaway.
the
Actually, now
the
you
the
remind me
world.
just that I had another boss. I was fortunate to have some good mentors in my career, and one of them when I was building a product for kind of a fintech company, and the boss usually challenged me to go look into sports apps. I mean, what? Like, look for their interface. Try to find in Duolingo, in Strava, in other kind of application, and then it triggered my eye to start looking to these kind of behaviors, because a sign up flow is a sign up flow, purchase flow is a purchase flow, user engagement in some activity, whether you are running or filling in a contract, you can resemble some of these experiences in different industries. Sometimes it's even better for you to come up with the innovative
Absolutely.
ideas.
Recently, I was actually at an event, and we had a meetup session. And one participant that came, he said that he doesn't have a product. He comes from politics, and we were talking about the unknown and the indeed user journey. So I was like really taken aback. I didn't know my 5 seconds into the conversation, I was like, okay, so where is the product? But the more I actually stepped back and I reflected on our discussion, I realized politics is a product, believe it or not. So you can find unbelievable parallels if you just keep an open mind.
That's why you say that this is such a creative job, and I get to understand what you mean, because I'm also an analytic person, because we probably have the same similar background in engineering and telco. I personally speaking, I always felt like I was very analytical, not a creative person. But the more I started working in product, more I feel that there's a ton of exploration routes. So hence the creativity in these jobs. Krasi, it has been a pleasure talking with you. I want to ask you, what has been the question that I did not ask you, but that I should have?
Maybe you didn't ask me what are we going to do at Productized. I think the audience would love to know what we have been preparing for the upcoming workshop. And all I can say is that it's going to be very unexpected, but highly interactive. So do come to the session. We're going to talk about the product manager guide for the unknown, and just some giveaways, if I may give.
Some
There will
sneak
be a
peeks.
fragility radar that we're going to play with, but also some strategic responses like a flip. And what does this mean? I am not going to say now. Or a pivot, rethinking your why and value, or even hack. How can you design a faster and cheaper way to learn? And I'm pretty sure that people would like it. So
It
I
will
would
be super
encourage you to
fun.
check it out.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be super fun, and also hands-on workshop,
Yeah,
October
it's
16th.
very much so. There wouldn't be too many slides from me talking, but we'll try to make it as interactive as possible.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward for it as well. I'll be there, scouting from room to the other, and I really need to go sneak peek into your room.
You're welcome to join. If not, we'll give you the elevator pitch.
Yeah, I'll do that. Thank you so much, Krasi. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Productized Podcast. Thank you so much, Krasi. Where can people find more about you?
Thanks, Pedro. It was a pleasure to be here and talking to you. I'm very active on LinkedIn. If you just put my name, you can find me there. Or if you actually want to have a more one-on-one conversation, my email is simple, krasi@owtcome.com. Outcome is spelled with W. So the participants or the audience is welcome to just send me an email and engage further. I'd love to hear questions or thoughts or even provocations.
Thank you so much, Krasi, for your time today. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Also follow Productize on LinkedIn and subscribe to this podcast. See you in the next episode.